Hello and welcome to Siege Budget Brews. I'm Tim, and tonight we continue our series of $100 budget decks. We are talking about Marwyn. And before we get started, please check out our Discord and our Patreon. Links in the description below. And if you enjoy our content, like, share, subscribe. It really helps out a lot. Tonight I'm joined by my co-host, Brandon. How you doing, Brandon?
I'm doing great, Tim. How are you doing?
I'm good, dude. I'm good. I think with that, let's get rolling. How's that sound, buddy?
Sounds good to me.
So, continuing in our series on $100 ultra budget decks, I wanted to go over one of my favorite commanders that I built a $100 version of, Marwyn the Nurturer, aka Milfstorm. For those of you who don't know what Marwyn does, she is a 1/1 for 1 green 2 colorless, and whenever an elf enters the battlefield under your control, you put a 1/1 counter on her. She has a second ability of tap, generate 1 green equal to Marwyn's power. So what we did was we built an elf ball deck. Now, just to kind of get this out of the way, this is not a CEH deck. This is kind of built to kind of be a streamlined ultra budget deck. Definitely has a lot of synergies, and we did borrow from some CEH decks. Just wanted to kind of get that out of the way, just for clarification for everybody. So, the main plan with Marwyn is we're going to be playing, we're pretty loaded up on 1-drop elves that make mana. So we've got Arbor Elf, Landmore Elves, Findhorn Elves, Elvish Mystic. We're also kind of cutting in with some super secret tech of mine as a personal favorite. Birchlore Ranger. So Birchlore Ranger allows you to tap 2 untapped elves to generate 1 mana of any color. Birchlore Ranger allows you to kind of give your elves haste and to help convert your non-mana dork elves into mana dork. So while it's not like the most important card in the deck, it is definitely like a sleeper that most people kind of overlook, because there's a lot of elves in here. I think we're running about like 29 roughly off the top of my head. And then that just gives us the potential of, as we play them out, they can make mana the turn they come down. We can also use some of our untap effects with them to kind of buy them back and make more mana. So we're generally going to close out the game with one of 3 ways. We're going to do a Teamer Sabertooth loop. Okay, so with the Teamer Sabertooth, we're going to generally kind of use one of 2 creatures to kind of help us generate infinite mana. The first one is going to be Great Oak Guardian, which will untap all creatures we control. They'll gain +2/+2. So what's nice about Great Oak Guardian is that not only will it allow us to make infinite mana with our team, as long as we can generate 7 or more mana amongst all of the dorks that we're untapping. Hence one of the reasons why we want Birchlore Ranger, because if we have a very wide board, we can tap 2 elves to make mana. 2 is she will grow, the Great Oak Guardian will grow all of those creatures, thus allowing us to have less creatures on board that can attack and still be able to close out the game. The other one is the Hyrex Tower Scout, which will untap a single creature. So this is where we start playing a lot of our big mana dorks. Marwyn is a big mana dork. We're also running Priest of Titania, because that's a big mana dork. We have Elvish Archdruid, which is a big mana dork. And then we also have Circle of Dream Druids, which is also another big mana dork. So as long as one of those cards can make 6 mana or more, which is not hard for this deck to do, the Tower Scout plus the Teamer Sabertooth will do the job. Also of note, with the Teamer Sabertooth, we have a backup bouncer in the form of Kogla, except Kogla will only bounce humans. So what you do is you will use Kogla to bounce the Tower Scout, or to bounce like Eternal Witness, so that way we can perform witness loops. Now, with that out of the way, now that we've kind of generated our infinite mana, we're able to untap all of our dudes. Now we have kind of a couple of different ways to close out the game. The most obvious is the Great Oak Guardian, just making all of our team big, and then we swing out and attack. Okay, that's cool. The second one is Azuri. Azuri Renegade Leader allows us to have an overrun effect for our elves. And as we stated earlier, we're running probably about 30 elves out of the 47 creatures. And then lastly, we can do Eternal Witness loops and bounce a couple of instants on our deck that allow us to close out the game. The main one is going to be Beast Within. So what we do is we just Beast Within everybody's permanents, turn them into 3/3s, and then we either use like Kogla to bounce and fight them, or we can just overrun past them because they're 3/3s. Usually once you've blown up everybody's lands, you've probably got enough stuff on board to survive to make it to the next turn, yada, yada, yada. And then lastly, just kind of note, is we can do a Shia with Quirion Ranger. So lastly, the last kind of like combo is a Shia plus Quirion Ranger or Scurb Ranger. Scurb Ranger. So a Shia turns all of your non-token creatures into forests, and then Quirion Ranger, and to a lesser extent, Scurb Ranger, allows you to return a forest to your hand and untap a creature. So generally what you do is you take one of those big mana creatures, those big mana dorks that you have, Marwyn being the main one with the Quirion Ranger, and you have Quirion Ranger bounce itself to your hand as the one activation per turn, and untapping Marwyn or your Priest of Titania or your Elvish Archdruid or your Circle of Dream Druids. And as long as you can generate 2 mana off of that exchange, so the big mana dork just needs to tap for 2 at this point, you will start netting 1 mana, and then the intent is that you have some other outlet like Azuri or the Great Oak Guardian or some tutors or a big like draw spell, because there's a bunch of the big green draw spells. And then you can turn that into, you can convert your infinite mana into a win. So when I play this deck, the deck is voraciously quick. It Goldfish is like turn 4, turn 5. So for a $100 deck, that's really fast. It can overwhelm opponents pretty handedly. It's got a reasonable amount of protection. It's got like Destiny Spinner. Azuri also will regenerate elves. It's got a lot of card draw. You've got like Duskwatch Recruiter, Beast Whisperer. Not to mention you just have like a bunch of like Elvish Visionary effects to kind of help you cantrip. And then you have all of these really big green draw effects, like Collective Unconscious, Life Legacy, Rishkar's Expertise, Shamanic Revelation, Soul's Majesty, Return of the Wild Speaker. All of these cards just help you kind of just refill your hand with a bunch of cards after you've kind of spewed your board out or made Morrowind really big. And then you've got a pretty reasonably dense tutor package. With like Woodland Bellower, you've got Yisan as some of the main ones like in the creatures, but then you also have like Eldritch Evolution, Weird Harvest, Court of Calling, Shared Summons, which can essentially like allow you to assemble most of the two card combos to like help you generate infinite mana or assemble to get the last pieces that you need. And then we also have Summoner's Pact. Then for interaction, we're a little bit light, but that's mostly because we're in mono green. So we have like a Nature's Claim. We have a Beast Within, which is actually one of our non-combat outlets. And then we just got some stuff like we have a Viridian Shaman, we have a Reclamation Sage, just to kind of help deal with artifacts and enchantments. Kogla, because it can fight creatures. So that's just kind of some of the things that we have to help us kind of get through stacks pieces or hate pieces that are disrupting us. And then lastly, we have two kind of backup, like two more backup. Like there's just a lot of layered win cons in this deck. So we have Umbral Mantle, which is nice. So Umbral Mantle will allow us, if we have like a big mana dork, like say our commander, even if Marwyn's a 1/1, one activation off of Umbral Mantle, and you're now mana neutral for the first activation. So you just tap her for 1, and as long as you have 2 mana somewhere else to untap her, she now makes 3, and she's neutral, and she can go infinite. So the first activation, she'll become a 3/3, then a 5/5, then a 7/7, so on and so forth. And then what you do is any other mana dork on the board, or if you have a Birchlore Ranger in play, perhaps, you can now tap all of those creatures, or all of your dorks for mana. You equip the Umbral Mantle to them, pay because you have unbound mana in your pool because of Marwyn, and now you've made every mana dork in your deck unboundly large, and then you just swing out. So that's one. The other one is actually Staff of Domination. Now, Staff of Domination isn't nearly as self-assembling as the Umbral Mantle is. So as long as Marwyn is generating 5 mana, you tap her for 5, then you pay 3 to untap Marwyn, or whatever your big mana dork is, and then you pay 1 to untap the staff, thus netting you 1 mana. So you need 4 to like tap and untap all the components, but you need 5 to go infinite. So as long as the priest, the Circle Dream Druid, the Elvish Archdruid, Marwyn are making 5 or more, you're fine. Then once you've got your unbound mana, now you just draw your deck with the staff. You tap everybody's board down. You can gain infinite life. You can untap all of your board. And then once their board's tapped out, you can like play like an Azuri and just make a bunch of overruns. Maybe equip like the Swiftfoot boots. Here's a good one. There's a couple of different lines where you can actually give every creature in play haste. So it starts with Swiftfoot boots. And Crashing Drawbridge is 1. So the way this works is if you have like Staff in play or something, or the Umbral Mantle, is so you just simply equip the Swiftfoot boots to the Drawbridge, tap it, and now all your dudes have haste. You can just tap everybody else's stuff down, make your board huge. Second is you can use Ashaya to turn all of your non-token creatures into forests, and then animate them with Destiny Spinner. And Destiny Spinner will give them haste and trample. So it's a nice like layered line where once you have unbound mana, you can use Destiny Spinner and Ashaya to make all of your creatures. If you don't have any other enchantments in play other than Destiny Spinner, they'll all be 1/1s with trample haste. So you have to have some other way to kind of pump them. But between like the Great Oak Guardian and like different stuff like that, there's usually lots of ways to pump the team. And then kind of lastly, there's not a whole lot exciting down here. You know, we've got a Fertile Ground and we got a Wild Growth. And we've got a couple of like fast lands down here. We've got Heartwood Battleground and Hickory Woodlot. These are just the real trick with this deck is you really want to at least be able to threaten having Marwyn down on turn 2. So you really want something that will convert like either 2 lands and then like a dork or a Wild Growth or something. But you want something to be able to like kind of get her in play as fast as you can. You definitely do not want her in play any later than turn 3, or at least be able to threaten it. Even if you don't, because sometimes it's advantageous to do so. So she can get blown out by board wipes, but she can rebuild really quickly because you have the big mana engine in your command zone. You have a lot of big green draw spells. And so I've actually found her to be, not only is she fast, she's relatively resilient. The downside is that she doesn't interact a ton. Most of the interaction is really just to kind of remove things that are stopping you from winning. But the nice thing with her is that she can play the aggro plan really, really well. Because at the end of the day, you're just a elf ball deck. So you just have a bunch of elves. You've got like Timberwatch Elf. You've got the Archdruid. You've got the Great Oak Guardian. You've got Azuri. So you got all these ways to just kind of pump your board. And just get there. You know what I mean? So I think that about cuts it. I will drop this deck list in the description. Well, with that said, I think that pretty much we're going to wrap it up for the night. Thanks again for letting me chat at you for a few minutes. I'm assuming I covered everything pretty thoroughly for you. That's why you didn't interject.
No, I mean, everything you said, I pretty much agreed with. Most everything is pretty self-explanatory. It's not I mean, it's not super complicated to grasp, in my opinion.
No, it's not. Okay. All right. Well, thanks again for joining us. I'll leave the link in the description. If you like what you hear, like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bells. Check out all the Patreon, the resources in the description below. Have a good night. Bye.
Bye.